good evening or afternoon or what is it called right now? Um, well, welcome to the senior Synth stream. Today we will talk about mixing and mastering. We've talked about it before, but there's always something to say about that. We are also. I have to say, today is a special day because Denmark is trying to beat Germany tonight in football, and I have to watch that because I'm Danish. So that's why we start here at this early time, 2 hours earlier, and we will end on exactly 9 o'clock. Okay, it's also been a hard time for me because I have a condition which I've had for about 2.5 months. I'll mute you, close that, David. Yeah, you
Hey
were a bit
there, can everybody hear me?
yeah, you were a bit noisy,
Yeah,
so
how's it going?
yeah. The condition, it's everybody knows about it. It's stupid. I write so much about it, but okay.
Well, suddenly I'm craving ice cream. I'm gonna
Yeah,
get some.
ice cream is good. Yeah. Well, welcome, David and Andy. How's your week been?
Pretty standard.
Come on, Andy, give us more than that.
Yeah. I don't want to repeat everything I said on Ramsey's show already, but yeah, just same old stuff. Put some new stuff on Bandcamp, messing around. Speaking of mixing and mastering.
I can need it. Is it under Synthetic?
No.
No, Bandcamp. I guess I never had an account, but a regular account because I have a creator account, and I tried to follow you guys on Bandcamp, and I had to go and create a user account to follow you guys. You can't follow from an artist account. It's just weird.
Oh, you need a fans?
Yeah, so luckily they allowed me to use the same name. So because I didn't want to use Synthetic because it's more about gear than about music.
That's fine. Yeah. What is?
It's really hard to find. Being a bio nerd and science guy and all that kind of stuff, it's really hard to find. So many people have looked on Wikipedia and everywhere else in the world to find genus names for different plants and animals. They're all taken practically, all the ones I liked. So I went and found a really weird euglenoid protozoan that I've had on my stream microaddict a few times called Paranema. So my thing is Paranema on Bandcamp.
Okay. You're right, though. It is hard to.
Everyone's just looking up shit all the time and stealing these names. So I'm like, all right, well, I looked everywhere, and I also try to look on iTunes who's using what. I looked at Bandcamp who's using what, and you're bound to find a match somewhere. The more you look around, like, God, they've used everything already. So
It's tough. I know. I was real happy when I kind of came up with it. Whenever Ace of Stripe, because nothing.
That's very unique. So no one's gonna have that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, nowadays.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. I got lucky, and then I checked Google and everything, and I was like, well, but I've been in a few bands before where names have been a problem, like depending where you lived, and all of a sudden.
Yeah. Well, look at Yaz and Yazoo, right?
Yeah.
They're Yaz in the U.S., but they had to be Yazoo in the U.K. because Yaz was already taken.
Yeah.
So.
Anyways, hi Henrik. Sorry I was kind of last minute, just trying to be the perfect dad and and get do everything. Kind of screwed.
It's
the mix and mastering, huh?
Yeah.
I had a mix book I wanted to. I was in my studio. I'll shut up after this. I had a mix book I wanted to show. Maybe I'll run and get it when we have a moment. But that I've kind of used as my go-to mix thing. Not that I would consider myself a mixing engineer, but someone who struggles with mixing is who I am.
It's all about learning.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. If it's not a struggle, something's probably wrong, right? It should be a bit of a struggle.
It should be.
Yeah. The problem is we make it a struggle.
I mean, it should be a struggle at least initially, like 10 years into it or something. It should be pretty easy. But people go, "Oh, I didn't have to do anything. I just did this and that." It's like, well, come on.
And to be fair, I
Who's a
guess
savant right off the gate, out of the gate, right? So.
they're really two different subjects, right? Mixing and then there's mastering.
Mm-hmm.
And they're bedfellows, I guess. But they're certainly I consider them very separate when I do things. But meaning I don't master my stuff or anybody's stuff because I'm pretty convinced there's other people better suited to do it.
Well, I've been cheating using some AI tools to help a little bit, but you know.
Some of them are good.
Well, because they help give it some punch and they help give it some definition that I couldn't do with just mixing. So that helps. Maybe it's too punchy or too bassy. I don't know. I'll let Henrik be the judge of that. But
I'm not a pro.
no, I know, but I mean, you've done a lot, so.
You
Yeah,
sound
but
good.
I've
Whatever
You
you're
talk
doing.
about it on Ramsey. Your stuff sounds good. So I mean,
Yeah,
you have
sounds
credentials. So
I make a lot of mistakes and just accept them. It's about accepting not everything is perfect and then move on to the next. Then you can be productive.
Yeah, there's sort of truisms and frequencies and depth and things that are just what they are, right? And mixing. And then there's an artistic side. And I would probably guess that everyone kind of, like everything, kind of is in a spectrum of where they kind of have their comfort or their strengths, right? For me personally, and I don't like to say I take over the artistic side. I think I just enjoy the concept. I was thinking about it this morning when I was thinking about the show. It's kind of like you look at a picture this way and then you turn a little bit and you turn over here and you just start to kind of move yourself to see it maybe a little differently, right? And there's some of that in mixing, right? That's the art.
and to putting it away for a while, coming back to it, so it's fresh ears.
How you want it presented, right? Yeah. Where's your focal point? And then there's some real technical stuff that matters a lot, which is just what I talk about. You know, do you have some noise in there that needs to be chopped off on the low end or on the high end? You know what I mean? So it's real fun that way, you know. And our ears are a little different. That probably doesn't help, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I was thinking about that because it's important, right? That we just don't all see it, hear it identical, but yet there's some real method to all this, and you can't be like, hey man, you know, I just do my thing. Well, it's like, great, you know, your thing sounds terrible, right? Your bass is you know, non-existent, and that's where, you know what I mean. Did you want the bass non-existent? Well, I can hear it. I'm sure you can, but because you wrote it, but that's not what other people. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to. But you know, you see what I'm saying. It's a talent too, right? It's like everything else. I'm going to grab that book at some point because I think it's really awesome.
Yeah, but one thing that people, whether it's mixing or mastering, where they often make a mistake is not having the right gear. It could be headphones that enhance a wrong frequency that destroys everything later.
Yeah.
So it's important to find first of all find some. If you do things on headphones which are neutral, not enhanced bass or top. They have to be neutral, so you are aware of what you're doing. The same goes with speakers.
I've been going between several headphones. These are thin ones.
You're cutting up.
They're the heavier headphones, which are pretty bassy.
Yeah. Can you say it again?
Okay.
Didn't it cut up for you, David?
Oh, did I get glitched? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
glitch.
happens sometimes. The Wi-Fi sometimes does that.
Uh,
I've gone through several headphones doing some of these things for Bandcamp and stuff. So I use this kind of thin headphones that have just minimal bass to like over the ear ones are fairly bassy, but not like overly like Beats headphones, which I don't like very much. And
Yeah.
also speakers and stuff, and the car and all that, all that stuff.
You're chopping a little, but I think if I heard you right, Andy, you got a couple different headphones you use for different perspectives.
Yeah,
Then
just
you go in the
because
car
I
with
don't
that
have one
perspective.
good
Yeah.
pair of headphones. I don't think that's that good. I don't spend like $500 on headphones, so I jump between several headphones. You know.
Yeah, you'll hear people. I mean, I guess we're going to talk about headphones, which is good because that's what a lot of people use. Not that that's the only thing to use, and that's another whole subject. But I've heard a lot, and I agree with this, that if you truly understand the headphones you're wearing and where the bias is, they can be very helpful. Um, and you can get a couple different types of headphones. Like for me, the Sony MDR 7506s, they're really high. They're just, they pull all those high frequencies out to an extreme. So when I'm looking to figure out if maybe if they're if if I listen to something and the highs feel high, really high, then I know, okay, that's, I kind of know where I'm at. And then I get the flat ones, the open head, open back ones,
Yeah.
what I believe is neutral. But a lot of them still have some, you know,
Also test here a
they
lot
have
too
their sweet
because
spot.
although the iPhones
Yeah.
have a lot more bass than they used to have, they're still they're losing a lot. So since a lot of people tend to listen on mobile devices these days, you want to test this as well, obviously. So
yeah, I
One
do
thing I
have
wish I could.
uh, I have a lot of different, both good and bad headphones, and sometimes I listen on all of them if I'm really doubting. Is that the name? Doubt. If I'm not sure about what I'm doing is the right thing, then I listen on different headphones, and if it sticks out on some of the bad ones, then it's probably not a good mix. It has to sound as a headphone sound. So if it's bad headphones, it has to sound bad, but not extremely bad. Um, but it's about knowing what gear you have. For example, I often master just using the speakers on my MacBook, because I know how it will sound on that if it's right, and then later I listen on my Atom speakers or my Audio Technica headphones. So so I work with very with many different speakers and headphones. Um, and when I do a master, I'm not done before I have listened on other gear. So listening in the car is the same.
yeah,
It's
because like so many
important.
people are going to use different
Yeah,
stuff, so it makes sense to do it yourself. Even if you have really nice headphones, not stick to just one thing. Just try it on different stuff. I have Audio Technicas as well that are pretty basic. They're not like crazy. They're maybe like $100 or
yeah,
$150 or whatever they were, and they're pretty good. So I use those a lot for stuff.
yeah.
Pretty
They're
flat.
very new.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly flat.
Yeah.
Um, so, but mixing. When you have the right headphones and or speakers, then mixing. Are you mixing? How shall I explain that? Andy, you're mixing on your native.
Yeah, my mixing is pretty simple usually because most of my stuff, the hardware jam based stuff, which is most of my output lately, is all Machina Plus. It's all in that little box.
Yeah,
So it has its own mixer, its own effects, its own blah blah blah. So it's consistent, and I've been able to get no one's ever complained about it. So I think the stuff coming out of it sounds pretty good, but you never know, right? Everyone's got different taste. But yeah, it's great, and because it's computer controlled, you have full live control as well as automated control over the mix,
Yeah.
which I use a lot of times for an effect, as well as just getting the balance right for something. So it's extremely powerful to have that capability without motorized faders and all that kind of stuff. It's just all inside the little box. And I'm not using a mouse. I'm using the knobs on the thing, so it's very tactile. And I can also often do multiple knobs at once. So you can do like a real mixing station kind of deal, where it's not just using one giant knob that's highlighted. You're using multiple knobs, so it's a pretty good experience.
Yeah. David, are you mixing hardware? Are you using a mixer? Are you using the DAWs mixer?
Yeah, I typically still for most of my stuff I do not everything. I use some DAW, but generally I use my Zoom a lot, which is 12 tracks. I was going to say one of the things I do mix in the room also, so I do kind of the triangular equidistant from the speakers and all that, and I have a mono button, and I have kind of fallen in love with mono mixing, just from recommendations to hear things a little differently. Certainly helps with the phase issues if you do start to have phase issues, which I have been guilty of in the past. I have seen things just disappear from going from mono to stereo or back. And it's a pretty extraordinary thing, from a psychoacoustic thing to hear something just disappear in the room. And you're like, whoa, okay, well, I found the phase issue. Another reason I always have somebody else master, and I trust them a lot. And one of the reasons I really like it is kind of a gauge on my mixing. They'll tell me, yeah, this was a good mix. You got a good mix on these, or here's where I kind of felt like I had to play with it. And usually it comes down to time. When I spend more time, I get a better mix. I know this sounds pretty elementary, and when I rush things, I don't get as good a mix. And it's pretty excruciating to keep going back and listening and tweaking, listening. I do like to work quick, so it's a really painful process, mixing for me. I like it, but I don't, you know what I mean? It kind of goes against my natural the way I like to work, which
Well, you
is
can get sick
to
of it
get
really
done.
quickly too. Even if it's something you liked when you started, you're like, oh god, this is.
Well, that's a little different. Yeah, that's a creative thing where, well, that's important because that can mean two things. You can get just exhausted with it, or you could start to really have to come clean with some serious structural or other things wrong with the song that are now really they can't be fixed through the mix. You know what I mean? You're struggling to mix because there's something wrong with the whole recording that you've done in the sounds. And for us, I think as electronic musician types, it's actually harder because in a band, when you come from a traditional band, you've got kind of the space the drums have, the space the guitar, the sound, generally how they work, and bass, and you kind of learn. Everybody kind of fits in that place. We're really, we're all modular sometimes, but we are not necessarily working from the same place all the time. So some things just are really difficult to mix because we're pushing the sound design so hard, and we're not considering the mix at all. We're just having fun, and we go, oh, I like how this sounds, and then you go down trying to really make it, sound good to others. Everything sounds good when you're jamming in the room, in my opinion, right? It's just like, that sounds great. Then you miss
Well,
it
it's
back.
tricky too
And I
because
think that's the point.
you have a
Of,
synth that has some
yeah.
great patches you just got, but none of them work together because they'll have too many frequencies and stuff. They just step on each other. And, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's
Yeah.
and that can make you dislike that synth pretty quickly, right? Or not wanna. It's why on some level, if I'm doing a lot of layering, I like digital synths. I like using FM or something. I can really make it fit so easy in the mix. Whereas maybe that big Moog, forgetting about tuning, which is another whole thing. Um, but yeah, mixing is, so I guess I like the traditional. I want to hear it in a room a little bit. I do, mainly for the mono capability of it. Um, I do try to listen quietly, not to overload it. And then in a perfect world, I would listen through 3 different headphones to Henrik's point and make it sound relatively nothing annoying in any of those headphones with their own biases. And then I'm probably pretty close, assuming that I hear the parts too. Things are being, because then, there's the part of the mix too, the magic in the mix, right? When somebody just has a natural talent to understand where the sweet spot of the song is. But that's a little different too. You know what I mean? Um, that's that part of you that needs to be objective, that needs to kind of extract yourself and listen to it. I like to do that the next day or a couple days later. You hear people say that a lot, you know. Um, that's when you kind of hear it a little differently. Maybe less romantically, or
Well,
what's the word
that's
I'm
the
looking
meme where the guy's like, he's all smiling like, yeah, I just made this great mix. And the next day he's like, listening to what he had. He's got a shocked
Yeah.
look on his face.
Yeah, it
Um,
does. It's weird when you hear it different, you know.
um, how do you mix then? There's the technique called LCR, um, where you pan either left or right or center. That's a technique. Have you tried that?
I know, like a lot of old Pink Floyd stuff, they did a lot of heavy mixing stuff. It's hard pan left for this, but it kind of stays over there for a while. It doesn't not always kind of come over. Sometimes it like hangs over there for a long time, and if you're not used to that, it sounds really weird, right?
Yeah.
People are used to having more of a stereo effect or more of a mono channel or whatever in the middle.
Yeah.
But to have something kind of lingering over there for the longest time, it's kind of odd, but it's a choice, right?
Yeah. Also, today most patches on synthesizers are made with a stereo field, so
Yeah.
it's difficult to pan it right or left.
Right.
It has to be somewhere in the center. But
But
it's a
there's
technique,
the
and,
panning
and,
is.
and yeah, David.
I was going to say the panning is can go from interesting to annoying and back real quickly. You
Yeah.
know, certainly doing some different panning techniques is a lot of fun. Putting a tambourine or putting a percussion maybe over to the right. The same thing you're saying. The Beatles were wonderful doing this kind of stuff. Moving things around a little bit just to see if, more than anything, it really opens up the mix, is what I find. If you got everything jammed down the middle, or if everything's too spread out, you can lose the punch if you spread out too much, right? You get the full, but you don't get the attack the same way as you're going to get it right up the middle.
Yeah, the extremes feel weird. There's just something just missing in there. Yeah.
So when they were miking drums in the day, of course they've got these different mics, and they're naturally getting these spatial things in the mix, right? Again, we're kind of, if you're working in the box or you're working in this hardware thing, you're not getting any of the advantages of miking. And that's something I've been thinking about this year, how to get some of that spatial stuff back naturally without trying to do it in a box, if that makes sense. Because I think there's a lot to be said for that. There's still something to be said about miking your synths through a amp, you know, and um, you know, it's just a whole nother thing. Some of these mixing and sound techniques, and it's super cool, and I think it is. Um, and I'll never expert. I'll never be an expert. I'm gonna grab that book real quick. I want to show it real quick before I forget. All right, I'm just gonna let you guys talk real quick. Ooh.
This window up here is kind of small.
Hmm. Let's see what the chat is talking about.
Yeah, the miking stuff with amps for synths is an interesting idea. Like you could do some trick like the feedback trick with guitars where you get too close to the amp and you get ooh kind of thing. You could use like a pedal, one of those pedals that adds fake feedback to a synth sound and simulate that, or do any number of things with it. It's interesting. Adding space to a sound or grungy qualities or something. Problem is you have to have a consistent place you can do that and not have other interference, other noise. And I don't think my room is that perfect for that.
Oh,
Too much neighbor noise.
Yeah, David. The book.
The book. You see it? Mixerman. He's got a few of them. Yeah, don't underestimate this book. It's well known in the engineering world. He's got a couple of them. It's half technical and half the other stuff I talked about. You know, the song. But it's I kind of go back to it. There's other books, but there's a lot of truisms in there, things that you just can't deny. A lot of people want to break all the rules, and that's fine if that makes you feel like a rule breaker. But there are things that you just have to consider to be serious about mixing a good song. And as you'll always hear, the song comes first, right? So that means you got to kind of know what the song is too. I just look at electronic music so differently. It's, coming from kind of a verse, chorus, bridge, or pre-chorus, song based where you knew what the song was. You got my verse, my melody. And then now we're doing these. The forms are so different. And we can do whatever we want. So when I say kind of knowing what the song is, I'm really talking about that kind of how somebody's listening to it, how they're kind of grabbing hold of it. Because the mix, you really have to,
Some modern stuff just builds. It doesn't have a chorus, right? It just keeps changing over time.
Yeah, but I think we intuitively kind of know to keep it interesting. But I'm not sure if we always know what. It can be hard to always know what needs to be the focal point of the song, because I think we get precious sometimes with our sounds and I love that sound, we're boosting it up, but it may not be really adding anything to the song, and from someone else's perspective. So he's talking a little bit about that, and then there's obviously a lot of frequency and talking about frequencies and sweet spots for certain sounds, instruments and. So I enjoy it a lot, and I know I'm not the only one, so I feel comfortable recommending it. And I don't read a lot of books. I should read a lot more, to be honest.
Yeah. Also another producer, Bob Katz. He has made some good books too. But it's more about mastering, as I remember.
Yeah, there's a couple cats on YouTube that are really good. What's the one? Oh man, he presents himself in that really cool California, LA style. I'll think of his name. He's pretty well known. He's got the I think he's got some plugins, something with the S. Um,
Ah, oh, that's I've interviewed him some years ago.
oh
Um,
yeah, he's
what's his
good.
name?
He's
Yeah,
smart.
yeah. Hang on, I can find him. His name is. He's doing the mastering show. Come on. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, his name is not even here. Ian Shepherd.
But
Ian Shepherd.
yeah, yeah. So that some of those, some of them are really good. You know, if you kind of you just kind of soak in some of the ideas. You can't really soak in all of it at once, but some are better than others, and some have different motives. But yeah, it's like we said, it's you never finished with that, and I know personally I'm probably about 85% of where I want to be on a mix. As someone, I know there's another 15% that I could get to, if that makes sense. It's not 95%. It's like 85-80 with where I'm at personally.
Uh,
If I'm honest with myself, I can hear it in the songs. I hear it in other people's.
but but
Um,
but does it limit you? I mean, um, if you have a track you want to mix down, does it delay you for days to make it right because you think too much about something? In my mind, uh, because if there's something I'm not sure about, then I just think, does it sound good? And if it sounds good, then move on. Um, does it delay you? Does it?
well, I will say that for me, it's a problem if I continue, because I may
Okay.
very well just get bored or frustrated with the song and shelve it. And then let's say I've had others, or let's say if I'm giving it to a label or something, they'll say that's my favorite song, and I'll just say, man, I just about pulled it. Like I just started to hate it because of it's. I think it is just the frustration with knowing I couldn't get the mix right, and I started to hear the flaws in the mix. I couldn't even hear the song anymore. I just kept getting to certain parts and going, oh, just you know. So I agree with you. I think probably. So I know that there's another 15%, but I know if I go after it, to your point, Henry, that there's a danger zone for me. So, but maybe if I get something like that IK multimedia and I actually figure out my room on a more technical level, maybe I can speed up the mix by understanding where, what I mean?
I
Get a little more
understand.
professional.
I understand what you're saying, and I also understand that it's fascinating to know everything, but sometimes, to me, it's more about being productive, uh, and accept some mistakes, and just make more. Um, of course, it's important to learn. It's important to get better. But if a song gives you a problem and it's your own song, then I will think, should I make a new song instead of fighting problems in a song which may not be good enough for a mix. Um, that's
Well,
my way of thinking.
well, I will say, just generally speaking, I like to write. Just getting a little off off topic, but not totally. I typically sketch 25, 30 ideas, and then I whittle down. Then I go back, see which ones still have some energy I can kind of work with, and then I go to the next level, and then I'm usually down to about 10 to 12 if I'm really lucky. Um, and so I do kind of work. They got to go through these kind of tiers of creativity and inspiration, and then I do try to go to it. I think one of the reasons I like to say the 85 too is because I want to show some respect to those that can get to 95 to 100. Right? I don't want to ever try to present myself as someone who thinks they're getting at 95%. You know what I mean? I know where I stand. And I absolutely agree with you because if you asked me what matters the most to me, I'd say the output, the song. I don't really.
But when you get stuck like that, do you ever
I'm
just
only going to put.
re-record it? Do you ever just start over and
But I
re-record the whole
do.
same thing?
But let's put it this way: if I had all the money in the world, I would let somebody else help me mix it and get that extra 10%. I think that's my point, right? Because I know it's there, right? I know I'm leaving a little bit on the table. Does it really matter? I don't know. Yes, no, maybe. It matters, I guess, up to the extent that how slick and professional you want to be. You know, could it matter to somebody that really could put it somewhere on a bigger scale? Yeah. Disney hears it, they'd probably say, "I'm not using that mix," right? But I don't think that's the playground we work in too much. But I kind of want to leave that there are people that can do that on a regular basis. The guy that wrote the book, and they deserve respect for being masters at well, masters at mixing, but not necessarily masters.
I actually had some stuff get ruined by like system errors or corrupted files. I had to start from scratch, and ended up being a better thing anyway. So the end result was a positive, even though at the time it was a negative, having to start over. So
Has anybody tried any of these new tools where you can test your room with, you know, any
I
of these?
use
I think they're pretty fascinating. Personally, I haven't tried them, but I've talked to people I respect who are
I,
saying, yeah, it works. You know, it helps.
are
Like,
we talking tools like SonarWorks Reference or Sound ID? Um,
mhm.
I use that. I use that for my speakers and my headphones. It's not always good on headphones, but it's perfect for my speakers. Um, but those tools also give problems. For example, when streaming, if I try to play a video on YouTube and put it into the stream, sometimes it's routed through the SonarWorks software, and then it will be muted on the stream. So 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 it's not always perfect, but for mixing and mastering, I always use SonarWorks.
Mm. I'll also say that I've used probably mastering. I would say at least 5 people come to mind that I've used in the past, and it's not easy giving it to somebody to master, and it can be pretty shocking what you get back, um, especially if your mix is not that good. And when I started out, my mixes were really. Well, I'm going to go back. When I started doing this myself, electronic stuff, 10, 15 years ago, I would have somebody master it, and it was really shocking because it was not a good mix, and they were really fighting with artifacts and you know peaks and things I was doing, just being creative. So I did have to respect and try to learn how to give them something, understand what they were going to do for me and what they couldn't do for me with just the master. And now I've got to the point where the masters almost always help. And I've got my little baby label thing kind of going with my compilations, and it's even more important for me now not to master. So I'm getting all these things in, and I need to have all the controls in place so that I'm getting a really consistent product, with all these different, 10, 12 different people coming giving me their songs. So for what I do, it makes a lot of sense how I work now, and I really appreciate someone who can master with sensitivity and musicality, and not just try to crush it. and compress it and boost it. Because I find when they start trying to boost it, it really sucks the life out of it. It starts feeling harsh. You know, it might be loud to other people, but to me, I can feel it. I just go, oh my God, I don't know what to say to them other than, can you back that off a little bit? You know? So the mastering engineers are very different, I guess is the point I'm making. And I would not assume that they can't make your music better. It might be worth trying, is what I'm saying, if you want feedback, you know. But it's money. Some of them are so cheap now, $10 a song. Some of them just say, hey, throw me whatever you can. And it's really sad, actually. And then you have the ones that still want $50, $100 a song, and it's just not realistic. And I'll be honest, the ones that want more money have not been the best masters, in my opinion. They've just been used to getting that. So, what is Crest saying? Oh my God! And now, ma'am, I don't know what they're talking about. Something about Italy. Yeah, that's a
Andy,
good point, as you had about what you're doing, whether it's going to vinyl or CD or tape. Well, go ahead, Henrik. I'm sorry.
yeah, Andy, we were talking about your project on Bandcamp, uh, and tell us how you mastered it. Mastered it.
So yeah, I just because I'm still a newbie with that kind of stuff, and also being somewhat lazy at times. I just wanted to dive into Ozone. I'm a big Isotope fan in general, so if I don't have to clean anything up with RX, um, I have a bunch of other products, but I just been wanting to mess with Ozone, so that was a good excuse. So I watched a couple of videos on Ozone just to get used to how to use it, because it is a bizarre interface if you're not into that kind of tool set. And so it's just kind of jump in. The nice thing is they do give you, other than the automation assistant, which tries to listen to based on some parameters you gave it to give you something kind of
Yes.
what you asked for. There are some canned presets by some famous guys, supposedly. I don't know the names, but they must be famous. I don't know. To jump through before you even get dependent on the AI part of it. And so that's fun to jump through as well. One thing I found though is those often are just way off on the volume. I get clipping immediately on a bunch of those. So
Yeah.
if I'm going to use them, I have to immediately go in and start messing with the settings anyway. You can't just go preset surfing in that kind of environment because it's all over the map.
I did
So
that in the beginning in Ozone, but
yeah,
Ozone, but no, uh, you have to do the AI thinking where it
yeah.
learns from what you've done, and then then
What I'll do is I'll
adjust
do
them.
that first. I'll save that as it once I do a couple tweaks that sounds a little bit better to me. Then I will save that as a preset. Then I'll start diving through the other presets, tweak a couple of those, and then I'll start jumping through the presets I just made, and the levels will all be correct. And I just listened for the character. Did I screw it up? Did I make it better? Did I not do much at all? That's kind of what I've been doing lately. So it's definitely hit or miss. So
So this is kind of an interesting point. That thinking about what you're saying, Andy. How much are you looking at frequency bands or scopes and things like that
I
when
mean,
you're
it's
mixing?
all in there. They even have a spatializer. You can see there's an oscilloscope spread. You can see your frequencies in space, and it's pretty cool actually. But it is overwhelming at first. You're like, God damn, there's so many things. The terminology is different. I'm still trying to wrap my head around compression. That's never been a big thing. I use it on
Yeah, it's
stuff,
another
but I
thing.
don't really understand all the different stuff, the magic of the compression algorithms. So I'll go in
I
there.
know.
I'll tweak some of those a little bit. It's a lot of it's just by hearing it, you know. Which is, I guess that's part of the mastering process. But being a beginner in that kind of stuff, it is an interesting trip. So,
Yeah, I, I don't know. Mastering for me feels very clinical and something that I think I would struggle with. But mixing for me feels a little bit more freedom, where I can have some fun. None of this stuff is probably everyone's gone through this. Cutting things out is a great way to mix, right?
Yeah.
Just if it's feeling wrong and you start pulling one or two things out that you thought were adding some kind of oomph, and then you realize all they were doing was muddying everything in the 500 to 700.
It can be,
Then
yeah, yeah. But it is
it happens
amazing.
a lot.
It is amazing when some of these settings, though, it does. I'm not gonna get a punch that made a certain thing sound more pleasant, you know. But then you have to
Yeah,
go in and tweak a little bit, you know.
yeah. What I tend to, even when what I've gotten a little better about, even if I'm going to mix by ear, which I do a lot, um, if I have a song that's a real problem, I will throw it on Cubasis or something. I'll find that stem, and then I will look. I'll go, where's the problem here? Where's all the sound coming from? Then I'll pull up something else, and then I'll see them. I'm like, oh, they're all just competing with each other. Now your first instinct is, all right, well, I'm just going to take that part out of this sound. It's not that simple, right? Because now it's not that sound anymore. It's something totally different. So it's almost better to remove it, you know, and listen without it. There's really no perfect. The most important thing is for me to kind of hear where the mud is, where's everything muddying up, you know, um, and it can be different. And to your point, a lot of times there's spikes, and these programs are really good. I've used a few. I don't know if they're AI, but they're kind of AI driven. Some different equal. I'm trying to think of the one I use. It's not coming to me right now, but they have compression where you can master. I guess what I'm thinking is sometimes I like for the hardware jams. That's a good example, where it's going on YouTube, right? And I'm trying to really just make it sound good on YouTube, right? And I think that's a little different. Maybe that's what Bert was getting at. You know, whether you're,
Well,
where
that's
are
why I'm
you
using
mixing
these
it for?
tools now
Yeah.
because when I do the hardware jams, I literally post at the 11th hour. I have zero time to do anything beyond make the damn thing and try to mix it the best I can in the couple of
I,
hours I ever have to work on it. So this is just a after the fact project to go back and kind of listen more carefully and see
mm,
if I can, with the single waveform, play with stuff. I don't have it all broken out into stems or whatever. It's a baked file. So
yeah, I'm
rather
just
than recreating it, I would basically have to use this method to tweak it, you know.
yeah. I guess I was thinking, it might be nice to have something that just said YouTube AI, master. Just we know what YouTube's going to do to it, and we're going to put it right in YouTube's sweet spot. You
Well, the
know,
good thing is a lot of these
if
I've
that makes
posted,
sense. I don't know. I'm not
a
an
lot of these I've
expert.
posted pre and post just mastering testing stuff weren't destroyed by YouTube, so that's good. At least not that I can
Mm,
tell. They
yeah,
did sound different, but they didn't get like a lot of
yeah,
people complain about YouTube destroying things. I don't know. I listen to music all the time on YouTube, and I find albums post on YouTube that I don't own, and I just listen to them on YouTube because they're there for free, right? And
yeah,
quite often they sound pretty good. So YouTube doesn't always destroy stuff.
yeah.
But then
It's
again, you know, we're not getting any younger. We're losing frequencies. We're losing other things with our
it's
hearing
probably
in
good.
general.
I don't
Yes.
like that. I don't like that high end, anyways. I don't think
Yeah, exactly.
most of us didn't grow up with that high end as that being our sweet spot.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know if we care as much personally. Um, Maybe we do, but um, I still love. I can still enjoy a mono mix, right?
Yeah.
Um, and kind of one of the things I've been. I don't know if I've tried this, but I know I was exploring doing some different things where I could just mono it, verse or something, and then pop it and then stereo it in the chorus and do some kind of more creative mixing. Um, but that's all automation stuff, so I don't really do that much since I mix on the fly.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can't really do. Um, Again, I've done some DAW stuff, but most of my stuff I can't recreate the mix. I just kind of get it where I want it, and I try to keep it down to 12 tracks because I can mix 12 tracks real easy, pretty good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can get to that 85 pretty fast with just 12 tracks. and I've written very few songs that need more than 12 tracks. Personally, I just start adding crap, maybe, but that's usually a sign that there's a problem in the song for me.
That's what's fun about the things I do with the RC505. We only have 5 tracks to play with, and you got to get it all in there because I'm not live bouncing anything and doing weird stuff like that. It's just it has to fit in the 5, and then I have to play with the faders live to get stuff to work, and it's kind of fun because it's also that kind of it's live, so you got to you know. And if I played that loop incorrectly, I got to quickly kill it and start over, or just start the whole recording over.
So Henrik, your process is pretty consistent, is it? Is that fair to say? Or do you change it a lot? Your output seems pretty well, I don't say polished, but it comes across very, very nicely, and I hear everything. So I'm wondering if you're good at sticking to what has worked for you. Does that make sense? Versus some of us scatterbrain people that can't seem to get ourselves to meaning me,
I don't think it sounds good.
The question I asked you. Let's say it does, in our opinion. Are you changing your process a lot?
No.
Or it's pretty, because it feels pretty consistent when I hear it.
Yeah, but yeah. Okay. I think I do it the same way, and then I learn something and add it to it, and then I forget something else. I've had a period where I did a lot of pink noise mixing to get the levels right on drums and stuff like that. But I totally forgot about that now and don't use it anymore. I've always also tried the LCR technique I talked about, and found it works on something, but not everything, and now I never really use it. Now just mix it so it sounds good, not because it's a technique that I just learned.
Andy, you're muted, Andy. I'm not sure if you're talking to us.
Sorry about that. I was just asking when you do the LCR thing, when you put something left, do you tend to leave it left, or do you move it around?
No, I never moved it around. But you can actually hear it. I do use it sometimes where I have one instrument totally in the left, but I always have something to work against it on the right then. So yeah.
So Henrik, I'm sorry, but I'm interviewing you now. When you say you don't feel like your mixes are that good all the time, what is there one thing in particular you feel like you're struggling with?
It's because I do the mixes and a soft mastering, and then I save that song, and then I may return to it a year later, and I may not be able to always redo it because I may not have the plugin anymore or whatever I did it on. And then I hear the mistakes where the drums could be too loud in a mix, or
so it could be different things. I'm thinking of myself where I tend to struggle with bass, which is not probably that surprising. Not an easy thing to mix. At least that's what I've heard. So it makes me feel better. I definitely struggle with bass. Hearing it representatively, in the mix. Maybe that's because I don't trust the room. Usually I need more bass in my master. It needs to be boosted a little bit. So maybe that's just how I write songs. Maybe I don't have bass heavy songs. I don't.
Yeah, but now you're talking about mastering, and you don't like mastering. You're doing the mixing.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying when I send them, they tell me, "Hey, your mix was light. Your bass was a little down a little, so I boosted it." So I take that as my my mix, I'm struggling to get the bass, you know, balanced. I'm thinking it's balanced, but somebody else is telling me it's not.
That's probably about your room, that you have too many reflections in the
Mm,
lower parts. So
yeah,
you are hearing it louder than it is when you do the mix, um,
yeah,
and therefore you are lowering it. Um, so maybe you have to do something about your room or work more with
yeah.
headphones, which are neutral headphones, or at least something that you know that you have to, yeah, where you know how it sounds when it's done.
No, that makes sense. And I guess it's the same as just kind of, at least now I know that I'm a little biased, and I can kind of, I think a little bit of it might be how I'm composing too, and how I'm hearing what I think sounds, you know,
But
I
but
just
if
may
you're
not be
hearing the
working in my,
bass lower, or you're hearing it
I don't
higher
know.
and making it lower, um, it's actually not a problem, because it's the same thing about your drums, about your bass drum compared to the bass. Um, both of them are too low in your mix, and that's okay, because the mastering engineer can fix that. It's different if it's always the drums that's too loud and such. But here it's a band, a low band,
Oh, hold on a
uh,
second.
and that can be fixed easy in mastering. So I don't see it as a problem.
Yeah, I guess maybe not so. Maybe I'm just, um, I mean, I think there's always that part of you that wonders when you're mixing if you're hearing what other people generally are hearing. You know what I mean? Maybe that's what I'm
You're not.
struggling with a little bit.
You never. They can listen on an iPhone,
Mm-hmm.
without speakers, without headphones.
Mm-hmm.
So no, no, you never hear it as other people are hearing it.
Yeah, I
Don't
guess
don't go
that's,
for that. Don't
yeah. Don't
don't
even
don't
try.
expect that.
Yeah,
No,
don't
no.
go down there.
Yeah. So don't spend too much time on on that. That's a
Mhm.
waste of time in
But I
my
will say,
mind.
I enjoy mixing. I do
Uh,
enjoy it. I think
mhm.
it's in the impatience of the process sometimes,
Yeah,
wanting to be done.
mixing is creative, where
Hmm.
mastering is more like putting restrictions on things,
Hmm.
because it has to fit to the next song on an album and so on. So mixing is creative, mastering is restrictive. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen people that even have people remix their stuff. I think it's interesting. I don't think I could handle that. Having people mix my stuff just yet. I just that's not something that appeals to me personally. But but I think it's interesting, and I like the idea of alternate mixes, and I wish I did it a little bit more um, in my in what I do, just for the creative side. I don't know if it's even for the listener at that point, because you're always, I'm worried about glutting them with too much, but I think there's something to be said for, you know, taking your stuff and mixing it a little different and doing different things with it, hearing it a little differently, letting different things shine in the song, especially if it's a good song. You know, a good song is easier to mix. I do believe that. I'll always believe that because it's just so obvious what to do with it. And then there's the stuff that we really enjoy making, and it is interesting and it's worth putting out, but it's harder to mix for me sometimes. It's harder to know what I love about it, if that makes sense. I go, boy, I really feel something, but I some things you just do, and it's just like, oh yeah, this is turn up the bass a little bit. But it's fun, I love those songs.
Uh,
Um,
Um, Back to Andy. Um, you're mastering. You said you used Ozone, so
Yeah, in the
you
past I've used RX and some other stuff here and there, but Ozone was kind of interesting because it's focuses more. I have some DJ friends who do mixes and stuff, and they kept recommending Ozone because it's
but
but if you have to like fix problems, RX is great for doing like surgical tweaks and frequency knockouts and crazy edits, and the spectral repair is one of the coolest things they have in RX, just to fix like, pops and glitches, and because occasionally these digital recorders, they put a glitch in there. You can't control that, so you have to take that out surgically with spectral repair. Otherwise, you get it, in the middle of your song, which sucks.
mm,
Or you can use the Photoshop style painting of the spectrum. They give you the sonogram plus the actual waveform itself, so you can go in there and like paint away stuff and all that. It's pretty clever. But yeah, Ozone so far is an interesting experiment. I've got a long way to go before I'm considered comfortable with it, but it so far has been kind of fun actually.
um, your songs on Bandcamp. You have uploaded them as one track. As I would have liked if it was an album with all the tracks instead of
Yeah, I
each
don't know how do
on
you.
one.
I haven't tried out. I don't even know how to do that. I have to go play with that. I was just doing one-offs, put them up there one at a time, and then I guess you select them all and say make album or something.
Yeah, why I'm saying it is because I would have liked to compare them level wise and on different speakers and headphones if they sound as they fit together on an album.
Well, can't you just jump between the
And
different
it's
icons there, and it'll just keep playing the next one? It doesn't do that.
no, it doesn't.
Doesn't?
It
Okay.
plays it sees every track as an album.
Separate instant.
The way
Okay.
you have.
It's an album then. I didn't know that. So I'm green with that as well. So
Uh, uh, but because we talked about your tracks before we started the stream, I
Yeah.
was listening for that. But I think the mastering is fine. The mastering you did. I must say I've only heard the two or three of the tracks, and the first one I noticed a few times where the drums, which are very hard in that track,
Yeah.
and great, but they are compressed so much so they take the bass down.
Mm.
So it's very important to find the right spot where it doesn't
That could
kill
have been my
the other
recording
instruments.
too. I'll have to tell you which ones I used for the originals because they're on YouTube in one name and on there is another name. And some of those could have just been the way I recorded it because again I do
Yeah.
these in such a hurry. I could have just totally screwed up the original recording in that respect.
But I really like that track. So
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that was one thing about the Machine Plus that's so great is the pads are amazing and there's some really good tricks with the dynamic libraries like they have the uh, in there
you have to
and the
repeat
drum
it
libraries
again.
have a
You,
lot of dynamics.
you were stuttering.
Did I cut off?
Yeah.
No, the Abbey Road drums in Contact have
His
a lot of
first-
expression,
yeah.
and that with a combination of velocity and arpeggiator tricks and a bunch of other stuff I figured out, you can get really natural sounding drums out of it. So
Yeah, it sounded really good, and I like how tight it was. That was a nice thing.
cool, thank you. Yeah, it was a fun one.
Um, Do we have Darth Vader on online?
What that is.
She's doing some cooking in the background, so I have to keep muted.
Okay. Okay.
I can smell.
What? What did you say, David?
Oh no, I could smell the cooking. I was like, it smells good, Andy. Coming over. No, yeah, I was. Yeah, the most, all this stuff is a lot of fun, the mixing and mastering. But I think we would all agree that it's really important to not let it stop you from putting stuff out and going through the necessary process of, of getting to wherever you want to get. And if it's just getting it out there, then that's great. And if you want to get a little better, the best thing you can ever do for yourself is to release whatever it is in every form. Kind of, okay, that's my new baseline, and then you grow and learn from it. You just can't. And so I'm really happy you put that out, Andy. Now we'll find it. I know your stuff from Hardware Jam, so I know that you are quite capable of making good stuff. But it's another thing to get it out there and to call it finished, right? And that means to get it out.
Well, I also don't have a choice because they're all rendered files, so they're already finished.
Well, you could have not done it. Yeah, but you did it,
but I wanted to see what I could do to give it more punch and give it more life than, because I noticed the levels are kind of low on some of the YouTube videos, so that this thing helped.
Yeah, I had that problem. I still have that problem, when I do it just for, like I said, hardware jams or for something. Maybe it's just something I was having fun with and I just want to put it out. You know what I mean? I was playing with video. That's why I was making the jokes about YouTube. Like when I don't put it out as under like a Bandcamp release, it's a very different process. But the important thing is to get it out, right? And to kind of force yourself to use the mastering tools. And I definitely don't believe there's any rules on whether you should do mastering yourself. You really got to find your own comfort level. Because I've already said that I don't want anybody touching my mixes, right? There's no way I would. And other people say, let people mix your stuff. And that would take all the life out of what I'm doing for me. It would just be like, well, why am I doing this? Because I enjoy this part. Cress, I see Cress said he uses, I think he does almost all stuff on his MPC, right? If I'm right. And he gets a great sound. And again, I think it's testament to that he has his controls in place and he understands it and he does it regularly and it comes out very, consistent, and that for me, I guess I'm saying that because it was something I really had to learn. MPC. It was something I had to learn to kind of rein things in a little bit and not keep destroying, ripping up the studio, changing things.
Well, that's another reason I stay with the Machina Plus, because it's consistent, so I can, not only learn it, but try to get consistent results out of it, which generally seems to work. So.
But the software and all that stuff seems to be, from what I'm hearing from people, is just, it's good enough. You know what I mean? As long as we have a little taste and a little bit of, process to make sure nothing's crazy, it's fine. Yeah, I can't think the last time I've listened to somebody else's music on Bandcamp. I'm like, God, this is unlistenable. You know what I mean? I can't hear anything. I don't really experience that anymore. I definitely experienced it in the 90s. People would give you stuff and you're like, man, I just can't. I can't. This is just not ready. It's not even ready for listening in my car. But
well, because there's so many styles on Bandcamp, I bet you found something eventually. You go, ooh, I don't really like that, but just the style.
Not from a. I try.
Some styles are just really raw.
Yeah, but not too much.
There's punk stuff on Bandcamp, and that can be pretty raw,
Well, yeah. I don't listen to much of that. I'll be honest. I listen to all of you, right? I probably got 40 or 50 people that I consider, that I'm really interested in what they're doing. And that's kind of who I follow, you know. So I'm not really exploring Bandcamp for new artists. There's plenty of artists. But just saying that I do listen. I will listen to somebody's track, and I rarely now go, "Oh God, this is terrible," you know. Um, it's more kind of taste, you know, or I'll say, "Ooh, that's a little." I might have presented that a little different or added something, but that's just subjective. That's not,
But I'm
you know.
finding this process so far is nice because again these are rendered files. They're on YouTube, and I have the WAV files. But other than recreating them, I can't do anything with the mix. It's already mixed. So the mastering has helped me actually pull some frequencies out. So when I was talking about loudness, I actually meant I'm trying to adjust the loudness of the various instruments in the track. I'm not trying to just make a black bar, oversaturated, noisy, awful, thing. I'm trying to maybe I can bring those drums down a tiny bit or bring the bass up a little bit or whatever. So far it seems to help. So
Well, Paul says we should all need a processors. Yeah, in a perfect world, I'd have API. I'd have all my channel strips, and I'd still be running things through them because they sound so good. You know, but it got too expensive. And no, but yeah, I agree, Andy. I think it's hard, and maybe that's what I was getting at when I really was early on, kind of taking that leap of faith to put my stuff out when I had somebody master it. It was really challenging to fix it on the mastering side. Some of the mixing issues. You really, you kind of sacrifice one thing for another. That's what we found. Like if there was too much noise, you tried to cut the noise, but then the air was gone.
and some of the high
Yeah,
frequencies go and stuff. Yeah, right.
yeah. I mean, I learned little things like on my my little sub mixer, my Mackie. Um, you know, I learned to take like a DI or something. If I was using a pedal in the aux return, I have something to clean up the noise uh, where things where maybe I was tolerating it. I was running the drums, but I just had unnecessary noise in the drums that was really kind of hurting the punch, you know. And then I don't want to turn down the brightness a little bit to lose the noise because I'm going to lose all the good stuff in the high end in the snare. And so you know, little things like that are things I've learned. Now if I'm using electronic drums samples, it's not a problem. If they're good ones, like Roland stuff, it's so good, it's just disturbing, you know. It's like it just, I have some I hope this isn't getting tangential again, but I have some drum loops on the one of my loopers, my little RC 500 or whatever it is. And then I kind of have the drum bird impact, but boy, when those samples from the Roland come into the mix, they never, you you hear them and they're beautiful, and they just cut through just the way you want it, no work at all, and it makes sense. It makes sense, you know what I mean? Um, but So that's easy to mix. It's not as easy when you start trying to mic things and or add a chain of pedals. You can get yourself into some serious like noise that maybe you think is cool, but it doesn't mix well. You know, the person. You know, ultimately it creates problems for you. You know, if you want the song to shine.
Does any of you know the technique about pink noise mixing?
No, but I'm very
Heard
interested
of it, but I have
to
no
hear.
idea how you do it.
Um, it, if I can remember it, um, it's something about um, putting. I can't remember it exactly, but it's something about a level of pink noise, and then you can, if you want to have the same level on the drums, for example, then you can take the snare up to you till you hear it, and just lower it till you don't hear it. and that's the level of the snare. And then you take the other drums and do the same till you hear it, and lower it till you don't hear it. Then you have them all at the same level, no matter their frequency. It's about getting the right level, no matter of the frequency, because the pink noise um, covers the whole frequency with a dip which fits your ear. So it sounds right in a mix. But it takes a long time to do things like that. Sometimes it's easier just to do it and listen to it instead of being so specific.
So you're trying to get the sound to break through the pink noise, and then that's the
yeah,
sweet
and then
spot.
lower it just below it. Then you have the right level. So the pink noise is just like a guide, so you can put all the levels following the pink noise. Um,
It made me think of, this is a little, again, I'm kind of drifting, but when I use synths a lot, I like to add a little noise, just because it feels really good when I hear it. But again, it's another thing where, from a mixing standpoint, I'm adding it's full. It's very full, and it can get a little troublesome if I start layering. But that's the balance you play with. I guess. But you got to understand when you're adding that noise, which is sort of what it's along the same line.
but you remove it again. It's only a guide for finding the
Right.
levels, and then you remove it again.
You have to get rid of it, because what is it? It's taking the whole frequency. You need to get rid of it. Yeah, and that's cool. I get that. It sort of makes sense, actually, when you say it. No, I haven't really tried anything like that. I guess thinking about the next thing I want to work on, mixing wise, I think it is understanding the room a little better. I don't know if that means treating it or just doing some. I think that would be helpful for me. I do use headphones too, and I will continue, but I really enjoy doing the room mixing, and I think there is, a lot of reasons to still do it. It's part of your process. Doesn't have to be your whole process.
No, I live in an apartment, so I never play loud. So I only use the speakers for mastering, or when I have mastered a song, to listen and hear if it's okay. So I usually mix on headphones, but because I master maybe a year later, I often do it like that. I can't use it to learn to mix better next time, because it's an old song and I don't remember exactly how I did it. So that's a problem, but that's how I work. So
Another thing about mixing that's tough is just making all the sounds together in general is just restraint, right? You want to put so many things together sometimes in a song, and it just gets too busy and too muddy and too whatever. So I forgot who it was. There was some famous or semi-famous engineer who basically said you shouldn't be hearing, other than the drums or some percussion, whatever, you shouldn't be hearing more than 3 or 4 sounds at the same time. Otherwise it gets too much.
Yeah.
So your bass is going to be there, your guitar, whatever it is, or synth, and some other kind of like a pad versus a chord or something like that. And don't have too much other stuff at once, except maybe little accent noises, because it just gets to be too much.
I think it's how Vince Clarke is thinking when making music.
Yeah.
He thinks
Lost
of it
bass in his music,
as a band on a stage where there are 4 musicians and 4 instruments. So that makes it simple, and it's easy to mix and later master.
Yeah, I do like to still conceptualize a little bit like a band when I compose or do anything. For that, I think it's for that reason, for just trying to keep some sort of control over the process and leave some space for me to work. Um, so, and I think that also, I guess, gets into the kind of the idea of, I kind of mentioned it before, kind of maybe having some sounds that you kind of you know how they sit and you're comfortable with, and they seem to work well. So I will pick a sound that fits the mix a lot versus whether I really love that sound, if that makes sense. Like, so once I've got maybe a couple of the foundation, then every overdub really is about picking a sound that works for that mix.
That's
And
what
they
I'm
can
doing
just,
on auditioning stuff, going through the
yeah,
mix.
so
I go
that's,
like, I've already got these laid out. I got them kind of playing in the background sometimes, and I'll start going through other things like, ooh, that fits perfectly, as a
yeah.
reference.
And there's, and then there's, of course, stylistically sounds I like, you know, and they tend to work well together. But I will not, definitely after the first couple sounds, after that, it's all about making it sit right. It's all that matters to me. Um, um, and that's why I like preset surfing, because that's when I really find that space, and then I might not use that sound, but if I hear something really sit really well, I'll stop and listen to that sound and say, why is it sitting so well? You know, what's in here? Okay, it's got some reverb. All right, it's panned pretty broad, or maybe it's sitting more. But I really am starting to analyze that, and then maybe I can swap that sound if I really want to. But I sort of know why it's working, because I'm working a lot by my ear, so I don't really know until I stop and go back. Um, but I think that's really important. I'll say is you'll be happy when you can turn it down. What is that? The called tinnitus. Okay, I don't know what they're talking. I don't want to talk about tinnitus. I probably got it. I got something. But you know what I mean?
Well,
Like
if you played
that
live at
idea
Vandal, you
of,
probably got close to it, right?
yeah.
It's
Oh
hard
yeah.
to control the venues unless you're wearing earplugs or something.
But to getting to the mix point, the point is that you got sometimes the sounds have to fit the mix. You know what I mean? You can't will your sounds into the song just because you want to use them. It's kind of like a band, like Henrik, right? Like there might be a point, maybe you're the keyboard player. It's just, you hit that thing and you just muddy up the whole song, and then other times you can lift it up, and you really can't be so focused on, well, that's my favorite patch. So
Yeah,
it
I've
doesn't
had that
work.
problem where I had too many weird patches, and instead of redoing it, I just abandoned the project. That's like, yeah, I picked way too many things that don't work together. I'm just put that over there.
I, so I think Andrew Longhurst was talking about this. Like, do you have your kind of go-to sounds on every synth? And I think I try to, you know. I think there is something to having certain formula even with your songs. It's
Can't
something
do
I've
that. I
had to
like
struggle
variety
with.
too much. I can't keep using the same sounds.
Okay.
Although it's a cool
Well, you
idea,
can
and
have.
obviously guitar is a sound unless you pedal the hell out of it. And
How many sounds do you need, Andy? No, I was kidding.
well, how many you got?
Uh, 10, 20, 30, 40. I mean, no, in all seriousness, like, let's say my Reface DX, I've got, what, 32 sounds in there? I think it's 32. I forgot right offhand. It's a lot of sounds to work with.
Well, Sound
To
Mondo, you
be
have endless
really,
on there, so that's the thing.
well, I know, but I can only put 32. I agree with you. But my point is that 32 sounds to one person might feel horribly limiting. But if it's a backup keyboard player, he's got 32 sounds to work with. That's plenty. I don't think I want a keyboard player that comes in the band with more than 32 sounds, because I'd be like, what the hell are you playing now? Like, what is that? I'm thinking from the band perspective, right? What happens when you get a group of players together? Um, People get real sensitive in a good way to keeping that vibe. So I don't know. It's just a concept. I know what you're saying though. I like to get on my modular and let it go too. You
Because
know.
like if you're playing a Hammond organ, obviously you have a lot of choices there, but it's still Hammond organ, right? There's not going to change that much. Or you're playing a piano, obviously that is a sound. unless it's a certain type of piano or you've prepared it or whatever. But with synthesizers, since you have so many options, it's nice to keep just using new stuff as much as you can. I've reused a few over the years, but I hear and I go, oh,
Yeah,
that's
it's a
that
diff-
preset on the virus I haven't used for 5 years. Oh, okay, I remember that one. But it
yeah.
is nice to mix it up, you know.
No, I don't disagree. I mean, we love, if you love synthesizers, you love sounds. So I'm really not by any means disagreeing with you. I'm just talking about the how that can complicate our mixes, and
Oh yeah,
some, so we have to kind of to really ruining a song, you know. You can really write something. It was really cool, but you really didn't think it out well with the sounds. And then you kind of, if you're like me, I'm printing, so there's no going back.
that's the thing.
If you're
That's
an
why
adult,
I spend as much possible time getting everything there and try to get the levels right before I have to perform it because that's it. Once it's performed, it's done.
yeah.
So,
Paul was talking about lately bass. Yeah, see, that's a perfect example of a
oh, lately bass is
just
great. There's a perfect lately bass on FM8. I use it. Yeah, I use that
yeah,
quite a bit actually.
yeah. I used to have the TZ, whatever it is, 81. I was really sad to get rid of it just because of that. Just having that lately bass on there just felt like a classic. I felt like
It's a nice one,
a
yeah.
pioneer. But that's a perfect example of maybe you might have a synth like that where there's 10 presets and you're like, that's all you use them for, and you're like, oh yeah.
But lately
So
bass is so specific though. If you use it too much, it's like, oh, there's lately bass again. For
yeah,
people who know it, right?
for
Most
people
people
who know,
don't know
no.
whatever but oh, it's just like on Photoshop. Oh, use that filter again. We all know that filter or that font. It just starts to make it too cookie cutter if you don't.
But I
So
think people got that way about FM, for a while.
yeah,
And the problem was is that it worked so well in some of my songs, and I really loved it, like the bass, especially the bass. I love FM bass personally,
well, most of the when
and
I do basses on tracks, I usually hit the FM8 just because there are so many good basses in FM8 that you can tweak a little more to make it custom, whatever.
you
But
just get
it's
some
I'll go to the
unbelievable.
other engines and I often stick with the FM for that because it's just
Yeah,
so great. You know?
yeah, that's so Henrik, where are we going with all this mixing and mastering? Are we all going to be using AI one day? And just
Yeah, probably.
probably right.
Yeah. Um, it will probably be a function in every door.
Yeah, it's. I don't know if I have an opinion anymore. I feel like no point. I think an artist will do whatever the artist feels they need to do.
Yeah,
To,
yeah, that too.
yeah, I
If,
mean,
And I mean, the
you
thing
gotta
about
have
AI
your.
is there's plenty of things being made without AI still, and
Mhm.
I'm doing the old man get off my lawn thing, but that I already don't like. So if AI is just going to copy
Mhm.
that, oh well, someone already made a bunch of crap that sounds like that. So it doesn't matter, right? I mean, it is going to steal some jobs from people and steal content with farming, just like the graphic generators do, right? But at the same time, it's plenty of crap is already made without it. And if it's emulating that, oh well, it's just going to make more crap. So,
I think my problem is that the things that I feel like I've lost. You know, playing live drums and acoustics and all the complicated things to get good sound. I don't know how AI is going to help me with that. Maybe they will, but um, I guess it just doesn't matter ultimately. Uh, I think really a lot of the tools are going to be good. If something can help me get a cleaner sound, I still want to play though personally. But if something can help me remove a lot of just trash out of the sound that came with my process that maybe wasn't perfect, but was
yep.
creatively a
Yeah, playing is a
blast.
huge part of it. I never use loops. I never use any. I mean, I use arpeggiator obviously because that's a sound and a style, and I use a sequencer here and there, depending on what I'm doing. Um, but yeah, there's something to be said for playing as much as you can, not just for the fun of it, but also to get better at playing, you know, and maintain your skills and stuff.
And that translates to mixing and mastering too.
Yeah.
You just got to do it, right? You gotta kind of. Sometimes you got to sit there for hours and hours and realize you can't really fix it. You know that the problem isn't that you can't mix; it's that what you're trying to mix is just not mixable.
Or not
Yeah.
That sounds
inspiring.
crazy, but yeah,
Not inspiring enough to
yeah,
be mixable. Yeah.
yeah. There's something else going on, that you don't need to be beating yourself up about. That, and I feel that way in general. If it, I believe in things, you know, um, not being afraid of challenges, I guess. But I also believe that if you're forcing something so much or struggling with it, there's probably something bigger going on. It shouldn't be that hard
No,
to
and
make something. It really
and
shouldn't be.
and if you're not a pro who makes a living of it, then it shouldn't be a struggle. It should be a joy to do what you do. If it's not a joy,
Yeah.
move on. Do what is a joy.
Well, and that's why there are several hardware jams that either was on travel, didn't have time, or didn't have something with me, or whatever, or I just wasn't interested in the subject matter or the sample set we had to use. Wasn't inspired by it, so I just skipped it. You can't force something.
Yeah. I don't think people are. I guess maybe I don't think people are necessarily typically judging our music based on our production skills, but I feel like we think they are a lot more than they actually are. If that makes any sense at all. Um, and
No,
then you got to ask yourself,
the group has a wide variety of output. So
yeah,
I mean, I
yeah.
don't think people are that scrutinizing about anything, to be honest.
Well, I mean,
But
but
it's your own
if,
personal
if,
thing. Like you
if
want to do your best that makes you happy, right?
yeah, so that gets to my point exactly. That everyone needs to understand where they want to hang their personal hat, right? Um, if you want to be a great mixing person, right, a great producer, then by all means, go for it, right? But understand what you're really trying to achieve. If you really are just trying to sketch some fun songs or interesting music, then you can't not. You shouldn't be agonizing yourself over that last 5 or 10% of the mix, right? If that's going to prevent you from giving it to people, is my point. Is kind of know what you're trying to do.
Well, yeah, because then what are you going to do? We have to do something live because you'll be really upset.
But I do see I see some people that are they want to produce something very professional, right? And they're bringing in musicians, and it's a different goal. It's a whole different process they're going through, right? And I get it, right? Um, and I think it's like you said, Andy. I think in our community, maybe that's a little different, right? But there's nothing wrong with that, and I think it's awesome. I really
No, it's
do.
all walks, which is nice.
But
It's
you
a
don't need
variety
to
of
feel,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, you shouldn't feel less if you are not doing that,
No, not
right?
at
You got
all.
to say, well,
Yeah.
yeah, you know what I
But
mean.
some
But I
people are
think
always going
some
to be
people,
their worst critics, and they're going to, I got to make this
I'll
perfect.
call,
And it's like,
I'll call it the
yeah,
Hans Zimmer syndrome, and that's all I'm going to say if you can connect the
yeah,
dots. Um,
right.
why doing that to yourself, you know? But
I mean, I got into
I
workflow. I know I have such
yeah,
limited time. So
that's the
whatever comes
point,
out
right?
is what it is. And,
But also know what matters to you too, right? I mean, if it really matters to you, if that's what your dream was to be a producer, and you really wanted things to sound, you want to display that skill and talent, there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? You just got to understand the trade-off you're making, you know, with all of this, especially if your time is limited, right? A lot of us have just worked our whole lives and been doing this as a hobby on the side. maybe a lot of hours, but still, we got to be honest with ourselves about how far we can take it. You know,
The time crunch is also helpful because it forces you into a workflow that has to work, otherwise you fall apart, right?
I'm getting
So
older, right? You got to get something
yeah,
done, or
got to get it done, and you also, and also, um, you'd be surprised sometimes when you're put under the gun, like, oh, where did that come from? I don't know. What the hell is that?
well, you do that to yourself, Andy.
I do
You
it
do
on,
that.
I'm guilty of that for sure.
I'm,
But
what I'm,
no,
the
it is
Harvard
true. I
Jams.
do. But at the same
It's
time, it
awesome.
also
We love
forced
it.
me
We
to do
love it.
stuff I never would have tried before. So that was also a good
It's
thing.
absolutely, man. It's done the same for me. I haven't done it lately. There's also times when I really believe in taking a break, and it could be months for me. I just need it sometimes. I don't know why. I got other things that need to be taken care of, right? Or I can't enjoy the music process, right? Because I won't. All those things are important. Um, but yeah, no, it's great. And Hardware Jams there's so many good things I could say about it as far as what it brings um, for people. The structure and the deadlines, the creativity, the challenges, and then the support you get within that group. It's unbelievable. It really is. Um, I don't know. I'm just rambling. Sorry, Andrew. What else?
Yeah, no, it's a great group.
But Dave, um,
Mm-hmm.
did you mix on a mixer or in the DAW? I don't remember.
Oh,
Was
what I was
part
saying.
of
So my primary way of recording is my Zoom live track, my L12 now. So it's a digital mixer, and I mix down. I mix on that Zoom. As long as I keep it to 12 tracks. There are times when I take the stems and I go to Cubasis on the iPad. And if I need more tracks or if I need certain effects, um, just if I need a DAW like type of environment, um, I haven't really found. I certainly can work a lot quicker with the Zoom, and I trust it. I trust just trust the whole process of it. But it does have small limitations that I find Cubasis way more helpful. I do like the automated. I love the idea that I can mix. It was really hard for me to get used to mixing on Cubasis when I realized I had to automate everything and then I just hit mix. You know, um, that was a really weird way for me to work. That was so different than. But what I loved about it was being able to just tweak it, go back, listen. Okay, I'm going to turn that down. On the Zoom, um, it's all kind of like a hardware jam where I kind of know the all the sounds and everything. Let me shut this door. Um, I know I listen to the song maybe 10, 15, 20 times. I kind of know where I'm going with everything. And then I mix on the fly, and I always do things that I was not expecting I was going to do based on just how I'm feeling it in that moment. Um, so the room is kind of important, Henrik, to your point, because I'm listening, usually mixing with that sound coming at me, and I'm reacting to it, and that's really important for me. I might still I'm still creating movement in the songs. I'm kind of trusting my instincts in the moment,
yeah.
and they're usually good. They're really good. It's usually the sounds that I struggle with. That's why I guess I was focused on that. Is that sometimes I just didn't think enough about the sounds when I printed and how they were working together. And then when I get to that clinical stage where I'm listening back, I hear the problems of the sounds, not necessarily because I don't mind remixing it once I kind of know the song, and I don't care that it's not the same way 100%. I think that's fun. That's the magic that in that process that for me is I feel like it's a strength because it's the place where I can give it some real life.
Yeah.
Whereas when I'm in so I usually do it like that. Sometimes it's So even when I go to the DAW, I've got some of that element already in those stems, and then I'm just kind of exploring how the DAW, what's the strength of the DAW, and what it might be able to do that I don't typically do, you know. Um, and it's really cool, and I can't say I find one better than the other. I know which one I'm more comfortable with, and that's just growing up with a mixer. It's what I've always done since the '90s, right? Just mixing on the fly, so kind of like a DJ, I guess.
I'd like to return to your room. And I have to correct myself because before I said that you don't have to fix anything because it can be fixed in the mastering. But when you are hearing the bass too loud, um, that means you have too many and reflections, and therefore also some mud. It's getting muddy. So you should really fix that low end. Have some bass anti-reflection. Uh, um, so it gets less muddy. Then it will also be easier to mix because you hear it right from the start.
Yeah. And to your point, if I'm doing mixing on the fly, where I'm reacting to what I'm hearing, that accuracy, I think, is your point, is that accuracy becomes even more essential um,
Yeah.
because I'm making decisions based on on the room and how it's reacting. Yeah, and that's why I said I kind of felt like that's probably my next small improvement um, that I think would be a good improvement for me, something I would enjoy that goes along with how I like to work. Because I don't see me totally changing my process a whole lot because I'm pretty productive with it, and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
So that's the two things that matter.
Yeah. What do you have now to fix the sound in your room, the
I don't have any
reflections?
bass traps. I can tell you that. I don't know. I don't have anything. I think probably what I would do is get one of those microphones. I'd probably like to find out, have it do some tests and find out what the mics are telling me. And then I would probably go in and make some changes to the room based on what it said and then see what happens after I make those changes. Um, so it would, I tend to work very slow and methodical. I don't like drastic um, changes, so I'm not going to rip up the room. And I see myself doing more like that and just kind of improvement. I think that's a good idea, right? Would you agree, disagree?
Yeah, yeah. Slowly is the best.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you change everything, then you don't know what did that and what did
Mm-hmm.
that. So, one thing at a
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Actually, it's funny. Speaking of rooms and stuff, this is more of a PA public speaking thing than anything else. But at the event at the mall I was at, the worst possible scenario, giant reverb room, right, with amplified speech, and the guy didn't know where to place the speakers. There's feedback constantly from the mics. He was trying to turn it to that. It's like, just move the speakers away from the stage. Finally puts it across the room, facing toward the audience. That solves some problems. But you always had reverb problems. You always had a bunch of other problems. It was really a perfect example of how not to do live sound or control your room. It's very funny.
Well, live sounds tough, isn't it? I mean, when
Yeah,
I always say that I don't like playing live lately because if I don't know the room that I'm playing in, because
yeah,
it's really hard to enjoy what I can't really react to when I'm playing because it's just so different than what I'm
yeah.
used to how hearing it. So then it's kind of like a depth perception. Like I don't know what reality is, so I don't know how to react. So I just kind of like hope it sounds good, but that's not fun either. Um, but yeah, that's So
But the
that
problem is
that
they hired this guy who clearly didn't know what he was doing, right? Because he's constantly experimenting like he's a beginner. It's like you're ruining talks of people who are not going to be around anymore. This is an important event for people. The actors are going to die. Get a guy who knows what he's doing,
sounds like you,
right?
Andy.
Well, it's nah. I'm there to have fun, not to work, right? But it's just, I felt sorry for the guy at first, and then realized he
Mhm.
doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Why
I
did they
know,
hire this guy?
and you can't help him because it's like,
No.
so you just sit there and watch it. Yeah.
And
No,
and the reverb was so bad, I even ran RX3 on one of the recordings to try and remove it. And I've successfully done it in a lot of bad scenarios. When I did corporate video
mhm.
years ago, the CEO wanted to use the stairwell a lot because it looked cool. I'm like, you realize the reverb in here is terrible. Luckily, I have RX. I have a magic weapon that I can take this out. But the reverb in the mall was so bad. RX, you just totally destroy the audio to remove the reverb. So space is important. That's, like you guys are talking about. Even if it's a home studio or if it's a room or whatever, it's crazy.
Yeah, I know. I think we were talking on one of the streams. I think Ian was talking about some techniques for the monitors. The putting it the weight. I forgot some of the details, but like he had the concrete blocks he had them sitting on. It's some of the acoustic stuff on how the sound travels.
Mm.
I should have done some of that. I need to go back and research how my how my monitors are sitting right now because they're kind of sitting on a little small table that sits on a bigger table, and maybe I'm losing some of this quality by just how I have the room set up. I might be better off getting some nice stands.
Well, before I left my
Getting
last gig at Apple, I got friendly with the guys on the Logic team, and they had like modular in their offices. I'm like, whoa, what are they talking about stuff? And the guy says, check this out. He took me down to their studio, which you would never know was there. The middle of a boring corporate building was just a beautiful professional studio with massive mixing console, several dead rooms and little vocal rooms and other treated rooms. But the main room had this weird thing of like wood slats, concrete surfaces, every surface you could think of, and ones you wouldn't even think would be in a studio in this one room to handle all the different frequency issues. It was a trip. I had never seen that firsthand before. If you guys haven't seen that in like a modern studio, it's pretty wild.
No, I think some of that. I think early on I was the type that kind of didn't uh, have enough discipline on the engineering side of my setup, and now I'm starting to realize that it's great to have all the creativity and all that, but I need to be. There's some certain things that just need that will make my life easier. If I just am patient and do them, and understand that the reward isn't immediate, that you got to just get things a little better, and then it's worth it in the end. Um, and that's coming from someone who's just very impatient. So I don't, but I also don't want to be the person who rationalizes my situation. Oh, it doesn't matter, because it does matter. I do care. I want the mixes. I want the songs to come out good. I want they don't have to be pro, but I don't want distractions in a mix. Colors as earlobes of magic. What is this? I don't know why.
That goofy CD trick, yeah. That's
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. No, I don't. I want things to sound. I don't want any weird distractions that annoy people when they're listening. You know what I mean? I want them to be able to enjoy it if it's possible. They learn in the tunnel. I don't know. I love these things though. Yeah, so I think that's my next thing. Andy, what about you? What's your next big mixing? Sorry. Um,
I'm pretty boring lately. I just keep using the same shit because I'm lazy and because I don't have any money to buy anything else. So, I mean, you've seen my studio. I did the
yeah.
tour for Clown Fest and stuff. So, I mean, I have a big 24-track Mackie and several
Oh,
sub mixers where I have a Mackie, a Soundcraft, and something else, and to cover the three other parts of the room that aren't right in front of me. And everything, and I still don't have enough leads to plug everything in. I just have too much stuff set up in there. But but it's all there, ready to go. And I even bought a 16-channel simultaneous recorder a couple years ago when I was having friends over to try and jam and stuff,
Mhm.
and it can record 16 channels simultaneously, unlike the Zoom ones where you have to do like it's 8 tracks, but it only does two stereo at a time, that kind of stuff. This will do 16 all at once to a USB stick, and then if you don't like the live mix, you can go and
Mhm.
remix it, or you can pull things out, or you can whatever. And I never got a
Yeah,
chance to really use that, so I need to start playing with that with the proper full size gear at some point.
that's my live track is you can do 12 at once. So that's
Same
what I
idea,
do.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
This
it's
is
the
just a
same
blind
idea. It's
recorder that
super.
just records everything with no fancy stuff.
I think my R8 though, my initial Zoom R8, I can only do like two, and then
You
I
can
had to
only do
put
the
it up.
stereo,
Yeah,
and
it
then you have
was
to
really. It
each
was.
one, and yeah. So that's why I want to get one, because I'm like I can't do the whole 24 track, but I want to at least get 16 tracks going at once. You know.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, they're real fun creative boxes, and I was glad to get it, but I kind of outgrew it really fast. Now I need an L14 because I like incremental increases.
sure. Because
I went the
like
same thing with 2496 instead of 2448, and just two more tracks.
the hardware jam stuff I learned from my friend back in 2008.
Mhm.
Um, we would set up all my stuff at home in my old apartment, and
Mhm.
everything went through a Behringer mixer, just this pre-Midas Behringer mixer. And then I didn't even have a good audio recorder at the time, because bought all that gear and I was kind of broke. So there was a Belkin add-on for the old iPods, the hard drive iPods,
Mhm.
and it was stereo recorder. It turned your iPod into a stereo recorder. Now
Mm,
it wasn't
that's neat.
wasn't the best fidelity. It was roughly CD quality, right? And we did just tons and tons of live jams to that. So everything's a mix down. There's no going back.
So we
So
used to
that
do those DAT decks. We used
exactly,
to
yeah. So I had to like sit there and wait. Okay, got
until
that
they
sound,
all
got
broke.
that sound. Quick audition. That's too hot. That's not hot enough. Whatever. And then after a few minutes, we're like, okay, that's good enough. If it's messed up, it's messed up. And we
Yeah.
ended up getting some good stuff out of it. But that's how I learned a lot of that stuff early on. Is the pressure of playing live, as well as trying to get a mix at least somewhat good before you record, because that is it. It is a single file when you're done.
Well, that's a good point with mixing too that we didn't really talk about much is the performance you get is critical also.
Yeah.
A good performance mixes a lot easier,
That's why I asked you
So
earlier if
you,
you had something you didn't like. Did you ever just start over, or you just abandon it?
what do you mean? Like,
If you got
oh,
something
you
you
mean
just can't
jam
possibly
wise?
get a mix out of it that you don't like, not just
Yeah. So
hardware
when
jam, but anything, you just restart re-recording everything all over again.
that's why when I say I do sketches, I'll do maybe 3 or 4 channels. I might have the drums going, sequence or something, and I'll just start to put 5 or 6 minutes of a jam together with the understanding I'm gonna layer it and do some different things with it. I might mix it totally different, pull things out. I've gotten much better at taking 6 minutes of music that I jam and make it sound like I made a song from the start. But really, what I've done is I've just gotten but I'll throw away a ton of stuff. To don't if it I don't want to kill the inspiration. So there's usually something in there. There's good in there, right? It just
But I
it
mean,
just
like, you
didn't.
remember the melody and just totally recreate it.
I
Whoa,
have I have to interrupt here
Thor has
Mhm.
spoken.
um, because there's only a few minutes till Denmark
Oh
have
yeah,
to
you got your
beat
thing.
Germany.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so I have to end the stream, even though this is
Yeah, we
a
filled
very
all the
good
time. Look
stream.
at that.
Yeah, yeah. It's been really a nice stream with you two. So
Yeah, I love talking to you all. I appreciate it. I really
yeah,
do.
Always fun.
same here, same here. Yeah. So also all the chatters, thanks for
I
being here.
know.
It's
Yeah,
been nice as usual.
yeah, it's
Um,
been.
and I haven't planned the next show yet, but it will be in about 3 weeks' time. Um, First, we have to win the championship here. Okay, we'll
You can
try.
make a victory song when you're done.
No, yeah,
No.
yeah. So, so let's end it here. And
Okay.
thanks for being here, and
Yeah.
have a nice evening. And if you can, watch the match.
Okay. Well, I was gonna listen to Andy's music, but now I'm gonna watch the match.
I'm gonna go take a
Yeah,
nap again.
yeah.
I didn't get enough sleep, so.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Good
Yeah.
seeing everybody.
Yeah.
All
Bye
right, buddy.
bye.